to kind of get an idea of where this brother was coming from. Genesis, the book of Genesis, chapter 1, when God created mankind, God said, verse 26, chapter 1, God said, let us make man in our own image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion. That word dominion, brothers and sisters, is key. Let them, mankind, have dominion over the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. Verse 27, so God created man in his own image, and in the image of God he created him, male and female he created them. Then God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. Now, back home in our library in Monroe Township, Miss Craft was able to find this book on African American history, Crispus Attucks and the Boston Massacre. And as you all can see, there's a depiction of Crispus Attucks just before he was martyred. And basically, oh, you're going to work that? Okay, let me stand here on the side so I can see. Crispus Attucks was the first man to be shot in the cause of American liberty. He escaped slavery and then worked on whaling ships that sailed from Massachusetts. On the night of the Boston Massacre, Crispus Attucks joined the cause of colonial protesters. The story of his life illustrates the role of African Americans and working people in the struggle for American independence. Now, a little historiography on Crispus Attucks. Crispus Attucks' parents, his father, Prince, his father was a black American, and his mother was a Native American. So he had a biracial basic background. But like you heard me read the scripture, he had a desire in his heart, because he was created in God's image like we all are, to be free. And because he was born into slavery, he was very astute in his desire to make something of his life. He got involved in a business called rope walking. Move the next thing. He was born into slavery, and he wanted to buy his way out of slavery. What happened was simply this. He had a gentleman that was basically his overseer and his master, who treated him very well because he had a lot of skills. He was very astute in working with domestic animals. He had worked on whaling ships. He had saved a lot of his money and put his money away, but he wanted to be free. He had the Spirit of God within him, and he did not want to be enslaved to another human being. So what happened was he worked, saved his money, and he went to his master. Matter of fact, I have a depiction of it here. You probably won't be able to see it. I don't think there's a slide up here for it, but I'll read it to you. He says, Mr. Brown, I have been saving my money. That's what you see up here. He says, and I want to buy my freedom. Mr. Brown told him, Crispus, you are my best worker, and I cannot let you go. You know I will always treat you well. How did Crispus Attucks respond to that? He thought in his heart, that's nice of you, sir, but there's a problem. I don't want to be treated well. I want to be free. Now that's something for us to really ponder even today, because he had a kind so-called master, and he had a lot of skills. But what his master did not understand was simply this. He didn't understand that Crispus Attucks recognized within himself that because he was created in God's image, brothers and sisters, God told him to take dominion over the earth. God never told other people to take dominion over one another. So there was always that tension there. And he had to live through that. And even though he had a so-called kind master, Crispus Attucks was a thinker. And he said in his heart, "Sir, I appreciate that you treat me well. But now I'm going to give you a Reverend Kraft's little blurb on this. But I ain't feeling it. And I'm going to bounce." Now those of you who know what bounce means, how many of you know what bounce means? Ah, see, you young people, eh? For you old timers that don't know what that means I'm going to split. I'm out of here. So you see in this one here, he took his money, and since he couldn't buy his freedom, he bounced. And then Mr. Brown put in a newspaper, ran away from his master. Crispus, about 27 years old, 6 feet 2 inches high, short curly hair, had on a light color bearskin coat. Whoever returns him shall have 10 pounds. Crispus Attucks was born into slavery, and when he could not buy his way out of slavery, he escaped. He went to work in a rope walk, and how this rope walking business, they made rope out of hemp. Workers did the difficult work of making ropes by walking backwards and spinning hemp fibers. When they were not working, rope walkers often carried wooden rope walking clubs with them for protection. I read in this little book here that sometimes they would walk backwards for 14 hours at a time, making these ropes. So this old boy had a lot of he had a lot of gumption. He had a lot of determination. He had a lot of discipline. And he had a good head on his shoulders. He had a rebellious spirit. But the thing that I loved about this old boy was simply this. He loved America even though he was subject to slavery and subject to bondage. And he went to Mr. Brown and he said, "I want to be free. I've worked hard. I've saved my money. I'll pay you to set me free." But at that time, it did not happen. Next. So this is when it got nasty between the colonists, and as you see, the colonists at that time were multicultural. They were black and they were white, and Crispus Attucks was among them. So you see that he was not anti-American. He loved his country, and that's always been one of the enigmas and one of the paradoxes of this whole thing. A lot of times, myself, as a black American, and that's one thing I tell black people all the time, we are not African Americans. We are Americans with an African ancestry.
I'm the only African American.
Exactly. True. Now, I am so glad, Reverend Clerk. He is a true African American. He was born in South Africa, and he's a naturalized American citizen. Now some of you will scratch your head and say, "Wait a minute. I am not an African American. I am an American with an African ancestry. I was not born in Africa." You see how this political correctness will get you twisted? That's the African American. So don't call me African American no more. Call him that. Ah. I love it. Hey, you know what? Yes, come on. We gotta get this. We gotta live stream this bad boy. Come on up here. Come on up here with me. Come on up here. Come on up here with me. See, Miss Kraft and myself, we've been to South Africa. We've been to South Africa. We've been to Cape Town. We've been to Pretoria. We've been to Joburg, because I do a lot of short-term mission trips. And I have told people that
right here in the States, when people say, oh, you African Americans. No, that is political correctness and political hogwash. Black people that are born in America are Americans, you all. And we have an African ancestry. Now, let's get this thing straight and get it untwisted. This guy right here, look at his skin color. Ha 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 ha.
I'm red now.
Uh-huh.
My blushing makes me red.
That's all right, blush on. He is the true African American. He was born in Africa. Aha! Now, put that in your pipe and smoke it, y'all. God bless you, man. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. See what political correctness will do for y'all? It'll have you thinking crazy stuff. I'm so glad. I forgot about Reverend Clerk was in here. But that's what political correctness will do. It'll take the truth and make the truth into a lie, and take a lie and make a lie become truth. And as you know, Reverend Kraft tells you every year, who are the true haters, y'all?
Ones who lie.
The definition of a true hater is he who hates the truth loves the lie. Eh? Now, go on, let's go on a little bit. No, go back to that last one. A fight broke out between the rope walkers and some soldiers. That fight was broken up, but 2 days later, another incident took place after a British soldier did not pay for his wig. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. People came from all over Boston, and patriots and Boston and British soldiers stared at each other. In other words, we're going to see who's going to make that play first. Suddenly, Attucks threw his club at one of the soldiers, and the British began firing. Attucks was killed along with Samuel Gray and 3 other men. Now, think about this, y'all. I'm going to go back in this book, because there's a cartoon on this, and as I read this book, you all can't see it, obviously, because you're sitting out there, but it was something that, okay, here it is on this page here. People came running from all over Boston. Tempers were high for 15 tense minutes. British soldiers and patriots stared at one another. Suddenly, Attucks threw his club at one of the soldiers, and the British began firing. Attucks was killed, and so was his friend Samuel Gray. 3 other men died as well. But I saw something in here that I wanted to, where Attucks literally put himself in a position to be killed. And that's why I tended, oh, okay, here it is. Okay, on this page here. On a cold March night in 1770, a group of working men faced down British soldiers in colonial Boston. Now, I don't know if this is accurate historically or not, but I'm just going to read to you what's here. Attucks is quoted as saying to the British, "Shoot if you dare." And then the British came back saying, "If they bother me, I will fire." The Patriots said, "Captain Preston," speaking to the British, "order your men back to their tents." And then Attucks said, "They dare not fire on us." Then it says, Crispus Attucks then dove toward the soldiers and threw his club at them, and in return, the muskets roared. Think about that, y'all. So when you really think about this thing and really grip the measure of how deep and how Crispus Attucks wanted so much to be free, that after he worked and saved his money and told his master, "I will buy my freedom from you," And the master says, I can't let you go because you're too valuable to me. So then Crispus Attucks bounced. But as a result of that, when things got really hot, and when the town got really inflamed over these different crises, situations that came up, and the last one that broke the camel's back was when man didn't pay for his wig. So Crispus Attucks could have just went on about his business. But yet he stood there in the gap and he says, I'm going to fight with the colonists against their oppressors. And what happened was he then started to taunt the British and says, you're not going to shoot. We're calling your bluff. We dare you to shoot. And Crispus Attucks took his club and ran at the British. So obviously the guy was going to shoot him. And he shot him in self-defense. So in a way, he was signing his own death warrant. You can actually say that he may have been thinking about, well, this is suicide. Because Crispus Attucks initiated that thing. But that goes to show us a deeper principle, y'all. The principle of how deeply embedded it is in the human soul to be free. Okay? To be free. Because God has given every human being his image. And that image says, you as mankind, black, white, yellow, brown, you are to take dominion over the earth. You are to take dominion over the animals and the earth. You are to be in control. You are not to take dominion one over another. And as a result, Crispus Attucks was the first one. Is there another slide? Crispus Attucks was the first one that said, even before Patrick Henry said it, in the Virginia legislature, when Patrick Henry said, as for me, give me liberty or give me death. It's not a stretch to say that Crispus Attucks literally gave his life and literally said more than just saying that. He stepped out and says, I'm going to make you kill me. Because I am determined I'm going to be free. Because I know in my heart of hearts, brothers and sisters, when Crispus Attucks ran at that with all those muskets pointing at them, and when Crispus Attucks stepped out with his club and ran at that man with that club, he knew that they were going to blow him away. So, what do we take away from this? Simply this. God has created us. They put a memorial up for him. Crispus Attucks is buried now in the Granary Burial Ground in Boston. All 5 victims of the massacre, Crispus Attucks, Samuel Gray, Samuel Maverick, James Caldwell, and Patrick Carr, are all buried together. The body of Christopher Snyder, a 12-year-old who was murdered 2 weeks earlier, is also buried in the same grave. And they share one headstone. There's the headstone. And then they put up later on in 1888, they built a monument, it's in the Commons, in honor of Attucks. And he became a martyr of the American Revolution. So, as I take my seat, what did I get out of this thing? Simply this. God has called mankind to be free and to take dominion over the earth. Now, let's fast forward that thing to today. We that love America, we that are patriots of America, we are being brought into self-imposed bondage because of our corruption, which is the taproot of our sin. God said through Christ that if you want to be free, we must continue in his word. And he said, matter of fact, you guys all have it in your pocket, Constitution. I read it to you yesterday. Every time I read it, it convicts me. But I want to read it again to you if you don't have your Constitution in your pocket, from Samuel Adams. The sum of all is this, that if we would most truly enjoy the gift of heaven, let us become a virtuous people. Then shall we both deserve and enjoy it. Now, here's the converse side. While on the other hand, if we are universally vicious and debauched in our manners, now this is critical, my brothers and sisters, though the form of our Constitution carries the face of the most exalted freedom, we shall in reality be the most abject slaves. Quote, Samuel Adams. So what we're saying is this: there's nothing new under the sun. We together, we've got to develop in us, we've got to put aside all of our schisms and isms. We've got to put aside our differences, and we've got to come together as a body in unity that first of all love God and love one another, and second of all love our nation. And we got to realize that no matter how we try to fix this mess with our Constitution, while at the same time embracing corruption, iniquity, and sin, it won't work. John Adams made it clear when he said that without virtue and without morality and without genuine religion, we are as foolish as trying to secure a whale with a fishing net. It won't work. So as I sit down, what I want to encourage each and every one of us, based on the stories that we've seen, I think that's the last slide, am I right? We've got to come into the place in America and recognize that we love this nation. There's only two nations that God ordained that was set in a foundation that we know will work, and that was Israel and the United States of America. And what we have to do is we have to reclaim that. And we can't reclaim that with all these divisions of black, white, this, that, the other. Jesus made it very clear, and common sense tells us a house divided against itself cannot stand. Cannot stand. We will always have enemies that oppose us. But here's the good news, brothers and sisters. Those of us that come together in Christ, and come together to love our country and put aside all of these differences, and maybe even take that spirit that Crispus Attucks had and Prince Estabrook and the other patriots that we saw today, and say, we are going to fight for our nation. We will not be divided. We will not be at each other's throats. We are going to stand for the good. If we will do that, there's no devil in hell, there's no country in hell that can stop us from being that salt of the earth and the light of the world that Jesus Christ has promised us. Amen. God bless y'all.